Hello to all my story lovers. Welcome back in Storytime channel. Now, the next part of the Treasure Island. Chapter 5, The Last of the Blind Man. Let's go to the story. My curiosity was stronger than my fear. I crept from under the bridge to the edge of the road and watched my enemies emerge from the mist. There were about 7 or 8 of them. The blind man led them. "Down with the door," he ordered as soon as they reached the inn. They broke it down only to be surprised at it being unlocked already. They entered the Admiral Benbow Inn. A moment later, I heard a startled cry, "Bill's dead!" The blind man swore at their delay. "Search him, you barbarian fools! Find that key!" He told a few of them to go to the captain's room and get the chest. I could hear the footsteps going upstairs. Again I heard sounds of astonishment. Someone opened the window and called out to the blind man, who was standing on the street. "Phew! Someone's been here before us. Except for the money, everything else has been taken." "Forget the money," he answered. "Where's Flint's map? Is it on his body?" After getting a negative response, he cursed. "It's that boy and his murder. I wish I had put out his eyes when I would had the chance. They were here before. They had bolted the door earlier. Find them. They must be close by." The men tore apart our inn trying to find us. Just then I heard the same whistle that put fear into me and my mother earlier. "That's Dirk," said one man. "Time for us to leave now." Pew lashed out at them and calling Dirk a coward and all of them fools for not searching harder. "Find it. We will be rich. You were all too scared to face Bill, but not me, and I am blind." With that, he began striking the men with his cane, causing uproar amongst them. They started fighting like cats and dogs. The sound of hoofs and a pistol shot broke them apart. The buccaneers ran in every direction except for the old Pew. He was left crying and cursing out their names as he rushed past me. But when he heard the sound of horses, he panicked and ran. He lost his footing and fell right under the hoofs of the horses. The horses trampled him to death. Breathing heavily, I looked up at the riders. It was Chief Officer Dance and his men. The officers took off in search of the other man who had accompanied the blind man. When they arrived at the docks, they saw a small boat that had been cut loose floating away with these escaping men. The officers then helped to take my mother to the inn, where she was revived. The inn was a wreck. Everything was destroyed. After telling the officers my story, we concluded that the parchment scrolls in my pocket were what those men were after. We decided to go over Dr. Livesey and give him the parchment for safekeeping. The officers helped me onto a horse and I was on my way. Now the chapter 6, the captain's paper. We rode to the Dr. Livesey with Chief Officer, Mr. Dance leading the way. We knocked on the door, which was opened by a maid. "Is Dr. Livesey around?" asked Mr. Dance. "No, sir," said the maid. "He left in the evening to have dinner with the squire." "We will go to the squire's house," ordered Mr. Dance. At the squire's house, a servant led us down a passage to the grand library. The squire and Livesey were sitting by the fire, each with a pipe in one hand. This was the first time I had seen the squire closely. He was over 6 feet tall, broad in proportion, with a rough, ruddy face, reddened and lean because of his long travels. He quickly asked us the purpose of her visit, and after they heard us, Mr. Trelawney and the squire got up and paced the floor. Mr. Dance, Dr. Livesey began, you are a very noble fellow. I will consider your putting an end to the blind man as doing a good deed. This boy Jim here is as good as gold too. The doctor asked if I had the parchment scrolls with me. He took the oilskin packet into which I had placed them and put it in his pocket. Suddenly the doctor asked the squire if he would heard of man called Flint. Heard of him? He is the most bloodthirsty buccaneer who ever sailed. All pirates fear him. Tell me, said the doctor, if what I have in my pocket is some sort of clue to Flint's treasure, will that treasure be worth a lot? Yes, replied the squire. Very well. Now, if Jim agrees, we will open the packet, said the doctor. When the packet was opened, it contained two things, a book and a seal paper. The doctor and I were puzzled by the strange marking and figures in columns in the book. The squire immediately understood what they were. That's the rascal's account book. So it was. We turned our attention to sealed packet. The doctor opened it carefully. A map fell out with notes and direction. Just past a hill marked the spyglass was the note written in handwriting different from that in the book, which said bulk of treasure here. The back of the note had a few more directions leading to the place called Skeleton Island. Livesey, said the squire, you will give up your practice at once. I will go to Bristol first thing tomorrow. In the 10 days, I will get us the best ship and the best crew ever. Jim can come as a cabin boy. I will be the admiral, you the ship's doctor. We will take Ruth, Joyce, and Hunter. The one man I am afraid of is you, Trelawney, for you cannot keep a secret, said the doctor. There are pirates out there who will kill for this map, who will take any risk to get what we have with us. We must stay together until we are at sea. I will stay with Jim, but none of us must speak a word about this to anyone. The squire promised to be silent. Now the chapter 7, the sea cook. Our preparation took longer than we expected. While the doctor and the squire attended to their own businesses, I stayed at the hall under the watch of Tom Rood and the gamekeeper. I spent hours studying the map, imagining how our adventures would be, but nothing I imagined was as strange and tragic as what happened when our journey began. One day a letter arrived addressed to the doctor, but with instructions to have it read by Tom Redruth or me if the doctor was unavailable. Since Redruth couldn't read very well, I read it out loud. It was a letter from the squire stating that he had found a ship called the Hispaniola. He even came across an old sailor who offered to be the ship's cook and could help to get a crew together. His name was Long John Silver. He had lost a leg in the service of his country. Long John Silver not only assembled the crew, he also picked out the first mate, Mr. Arrow. The letter ended with the squires asking the doctor, myself, Redruth, to meet him in Bristol as soon as possible. He also added that I may spend one night with my mother before we left. When I got back to the inn, I was happy to see my mother in good health. The square had gotten the entire inn rebuilt and painted. The square also sent my mother a young boy as an apprentice to help out in my absence. On seeing the boy, I realized that he had taken my place next to my mother and that I was truly leaving home for a long time. This thought brought tears to my eyes. I left the next morning and soon the Admiral Benbow Inn was out of sight. We travelled to Bristol by train. The moment we stepped off, we headed toward the inn, where the square was waiting for us. On our way there, I saw many ships. Though I had lived by the seaside all my life, I seemed never to have been so close to the sea itself. I was imagining my life as a sailor when the square suddenly appeared before me. He was dressed like a ship's admiral and all his finery. "Oh, sir," I cried, "when do we set sail?" "Sail?" he answered. "We sail tomorrow." Now, the chapter 8 at the sign of the spyglass. After breakfast, the squire gave me a note to be delivered to the Long John Silver. He also gave me direction on how to get to the tavern where I could find him. I made my way through the crowded docks until I found the tavern. It had the sign of spyglass on it. It was quite a neat little tavern and it was full of sailors talking loudly. I saw a cook come out of a room and I simply knew at first glance that he was Long John Silver. His left leg was cut off from the knee. He carried a crutch, hopping on it with a great speed. He was tall and very strong and had a big pale face, but he looked intelligent and was smiling. He spoke and laughed with the men there. When I first had been told that he was one-legged man, immediately thought that he was the sailor that the dead captain had asked me to look out for. However, looking at him, I knew he was not that one. I took a deep breath and walked up to him. "Mr. Silver, sir?" I asked, holding out the note. "Yes, my lad," he said, smiling at me. "This is my name, and who might you be?" He read the squire's note, and his smile broadened. He took my hand and shook it firmly. "So you are our new cabin boy. I am pleased to meet you." Just then one of the customers got up and rushed out of the door. But I recognized him from his missing two fingers on his hand and the expression on his face when he saw me. "Oh," I cried, "stop him! That's Black Dog. I don't care who he is. He hasn't paid for his drink," cried Long John. He sent one of his men after him. He asked me to repeat the name again. I told him that he was one of the Buckners. So he cried, "He was here in my house." He looked at a man sitting alone on a table. "Morgan," he called out, "you are drinking with him, weren't you? Come here and tell us what he told you." A grey-haired, red-faced sailor called Morgan came forward. He told Long John Silver that this was the first time he had seen Black Dog. He had never met him before. After finding out that the conversation was more or less general, Long John Silver sent Morgan back to his table. He told me that he had seen Black Dog come in with a blind beggar's orphan. Phew! The blind man, his name's Pew. I told him so it is. Did he talk of throwing you overboard? It's him I will throw overboard if I get the chance. I started to grow quite suspicious seeing Black Dog here, and I observed Long John Silver. He was quite good at convincing me that he would have gone after Black Dog himself. Had he had both his legs, we decided to tell Square Trelawney about this on our way there. He told me about the different ships we passed by and told me old sea stories. He kept explaining nautical terms to me and until I understood them perfectly. I saw then that he was the best possible sailor. When we arrived at the inn, we found Dr. Livesey there along with the square. Long John told them what had happened at the tavern, not missing a single detail. He even asked for my confirmation on the event. The squire and the doctor regretted that the Black Dog had managed to get away. After congratulating Long John, we all agreed to meet aboard the ship at the 4 o'clock that afternoon. Well, Trelawney, said the doctor, you were right about the Long John Silver. He will prove to be very worthy to us. That man is an ass. He turned to me. Now, Jim, let us go see our ship. Now, the next part is chapter 9, Powder and Arms. We quickly made our way to the harbor. Our ship, the Hispaniola, was docked beside other great ships. We were introduced to Mr. Arrow, the ship's mate, a dark man with studs in his ears and squint eyes. Soon after we met the captain, Captain Smollett, who asked to speak to the squire as soon as possible. "Ah, Captain," said Trelawney, "what have you to say? All's well, I hope." "Well, sir," began Captain Smollett, "I will be quite honest with you. I don't like the men and I don't like my officer." "What about the ship?" asked Trelawney. The captain said he had no complaints about the ship. He felt that the men already knew too much about the mission to find the treasure. He didn't think it was right that he, being a captain, knew much less than they did about the journey. "I don't like treasure voyages. I especially don't like them when they are not secret voyages. Voyages that even the cook's parrot knows of. If I may say so, what you gentlemen are about to embark on is very dangerous." He asked us if we were absolutely sure and determined to take this journey. "Yes," the squire answered. "Very well," said the captain. "As you have patiently heard me saying useless things to you, allow me to add a few more words. I would suggest that you separate the powder from the arms. Also that all of your own men sleep together in the same cabin." "Any more?" asked the squire. "One more," said the captain. "There is to be no more mentioning of the treasure. The men already know the exact location of the island." The squire protested by saying that he had told no one about the location, and we believed him. But the captain proved him wrong by describing the map and the exact latitudes and longitudes of the location of the treasure. The doctor then understood the captain's concern. The captain feared unrest amongst the crew members. The doctor reassured him. You are very understanding, sir," said the captain. "When I came in here, I thought I was going to be discharged. I knew the squire wouldn't listen to me." The squire angrily told the captain, "You are right about that. Had the doctor not been here, I would have sent you packing. I have heard all that you have to say, and I will do as you want. That does not mean I think any better of you. The captain only bowed and left, totally unaffected. When we got onto the ship, the men were already taking out of the powder and the arms, yo-hoing at their efforts. Mr. Arrow was supervising them. I quite like my new sleeping arrangement. When Long John Silver arrived shortly, he tried to protest our changes. "These are my orders," said the captain to Long John. "You may go down and cook supper for the crew." Long John nodded his agreement, saluted the captain, and went to the below decks. "That's the good man," said the doctor. It was clear that the captain would be quite strict. He even sent me below decks with the sharp word to help Long John Silver. As I hurried up, I heard him telling the doctors loudly, "I will have no favors on my ship." At that moment, I started sharing the squire's dislike for the captain somewhat. Now, this is the end of the second part. I will be coming soon with the next part. Till then, take care. Bye bye.